essentially a startup meeting every Sunday to get an understanding of what's going to be worked on, what can we actually do to contribute this week. What this brings us to, the proposal currently is 108 contact hours over the course of the entire 9 weeks. As far as your impact on the workday, the total hours that are actually during a standard working hour day are 38 hours out of standard work day. So you're looking every other Friday over the course of 9 weeks. What this offers in return through the Simpson Graduate Continuing Education, this is what Simpson calls a course 900 or a 900 level course. You'll be receiving 4 CECs, continuing education credits, which puts our total cost at right now $1948 is what we're proposing total cost is. Our desire would be something where there is either a employer support or employer match. However, we believe the value proposition of someone being able to say, I actually have entrepreneurial experience, I can be an entrepreneur here, I should be the one you pick for that next senior executive role, should hopefully be worth $2,000 to someone who's in a position to be considered. Relatively speaking to the other things that individuals have on offer, when you look, our offering, and this is why we're actually really excited to be working with ABI to make sure we get this right. And Kay, if I got, you give me a face like I got a number wrong now, right?
Pardon?
You give me a face like I got a number wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So what we have through this program, we believe our 2 closest competitors would be essentially ABI Leadership Iowa, would be what we're most similar in a lot of senses. So we actually have a few more educational components or structured educational components in Leadership Iowa, but we have less of the educational structure of something of a Drake University Master's program. When we look at the comparisons, we have at the top what we're proposing at the top, which is our standard course. We're also looking at a 16-week option, which would essentially run the same similar format. Price point wise, we believe we're sitting at a very economical price point relative to what other people would be gaining. One of your major takeaways of ABI's Leadership Iowa, which a lot of you have been in, is really developing that trusted network of experts, essentially a cohort who you can go to. If I'm saying nationwide, I have an HR problem, I can call my buddy principal and say, how do you do this? That's what you're gaining, that's what we believe we're trying to replicate with this program. At the same time, we're attempting to actually optimize how we deliver education by providing more of a Montessori environment, which gets you a bit more similar to the Drake offering, we believe. For those, we also have one green face back there as well. We've built the website here, which you can go to today. There we are. If you are wanting to take a look, we have a bit more information up here. This, based on your input, will change. So nothing is in stone. It's on the internet, so it can stay forever or go away today. If you go to Simpson College, either go to Emerge and follow us through Emerge, Simpson College/Emerge. You can learn a little bit about what the actual course is. A few very quotes that are relevant to what we're attempting to do. Basic just a program, and we actually, for anyone who's interested, we have at the bottom the ability to actually waitlist yourself. So if there are any students or any employees that you know of who say this would be a great fit, we start enrollment the second week of or the first week of October is when enrollment actually opens. So we've offered a place here for individuals to identify their interest and essentially hold a spot for consideration. So anyone with interest here would be considered first as the applications come in. Again, with each of these, an individual signs up has to pick one of their 6 areas of focus, which is governance, strategic management, operations, finance, marketing, sales, human resources, research development. And we will not, our target is 3 to 4 individuals within each of those areas. So some areas may be more, more popular than others, but no successful company is run with all the same thing. So that's our opening pitch, and please, as I say, feel free to tear it apart viciously or nicely or however you feel. Any questions? Sorry.
Yeah, for the startups that are chosen, I hope I don't offend anybody. I've seen a lot of startups be chosen that are probably not good choices to have people work with. It's just not a good idea, and they should tweak or adjust it. But what's the funnel look like to get good quality business ideas and startup businesses into the process?
Yeah, our number one key on the actual startup selection is we have three that, we have three that we're actually looking at right now. The number one primary goal is, do they have a competent team that is doing something that's producing not only results, but actually has a high likelihood of being investable. That's our number one feature. We don't want to be throwing in something that is just sort of Bob's shoe gum, right?
Right.
That isn't very helpful to anyone. What we're looking at is someone who is really in that stage of within the next year, they intend to be going for a significant round. They can be pre-seed in some ways, but it's very unexpected that they would be pre-seed. And one of the major goals is going to be, will they be able to get something out of this from understanding corporate processes? They must either have a corporate face or a strong corporate operations connection where they're going to see some value out of this. There's really no value in providing a startup that can't use it with a room full of experts. And that would be as far as how the vetting is done, we would be doing that on the emerge side. So if we get it wrong, we can blame me because I'll have made the final call. And again, we may not get the right fit. We may not get the right fit in class. So this is a first year beta. We'll go as we go. But any input on how we pick those correctly, we do not have a set criteria. I'm a big believer in no rules till you need them. And so if we have a good procedure, though, we'd love to get it.
In terms of your startup, are you trying to focus in a particular industry or just who's ready to
It's who's ready. I mean, when you look at emerge in general, we have no focus. Our first startup was a concrete technology. Our second one was a novel. Or it looks like we might be bringing in dog food. So I think that we're as open. The issue is what we're building here with emerge in general, with this program specifically, is how do you create a fully functioning team that can actually understand how we build an investable group of individuals. No one has ever invested in technology or facilities. It's just never happened and never will. They've always invested in people. We need to figure out a way that we can help build that team of investable people. Hey, you can ask amazing.
Eventually I'll get kicked out of here.
You get 25 questions.
Well, I'm going to ask that his picture be taken off the website.
I'll put that into consideration. Take a look at how that goes.
Back to throwing it out.
There's a competitive nature to this with other entities, other state-funded entities, other privately funded entities, other combination of that. Everybody's looking for the same type of thing, but this is the first one I've seen that's designed with an awesome focus on what's actually needed. How do you eliminate the competition, the other entities out there trying to do similar things from fighting with you so that you can keep going down this path?
I mean, I think that first is communication. I don't think that we position this to be in a competitive place. If there's individuals who believe that this actually goes into someone else's territory that exists, if territory exists, I think that they're mistaken in the perception of number one, it's a zero game. And number two, that we're doing something that they're already doing. And that's part of our goal here is to make sure we aren't going over something old. When you look at, as we see the landscape is, we have great intellectual property. Step one is being created at Iowa State through ABI partners, through Simpson College. Simpson College, if anyone hasn't seen, they have one of the most dynamic nanofabrication teams in the world. If that's a surprise to anyone, you should meet Professor Lyons and Santos. I mean, it's blowing my mind what they're doing, right? So we have IP out the wazoo in this state. We have number three, which is accelerators like Startup City, like West Des Moines Incubator. We have a number of these different Spencer Incubator that are able to take a fully formed team and actually accelerate them to the point of getting through a first or second round. And then we have great state programs that are able to take a fully established company and able to actually really expand them internationally. The number of resources available through the state is massive. If you're at that position to be investable as a fully company operator, well, we're missing a step two. The challenge of Startup City and some of the issues that it's had has not been an issue that the model's wrong with Startup City. It's that our funnel hasn't been developed in getting investable teams in there with that opportunity. We gave an opportunity before we had the network of people. We're building that. When you're looking at, for example, the venture school the University of Iowa is doing, that's a very well developed course on the lean business model canvas. That's a good one. we buy the model. You know, I mean, I'm a mentor for that program. I believe in that model. I think it's good. I think that someone who's needing the business model canvas is someone who may be a little early for what we're doing. If you aren't sure that you have a customer piece, we'd be probably sitting behind, or we'd be sitting after the business model canvas learning. We'd be sitting before Startup City learning. We are focused on companies in this case that are going to be investable. Our traditional fit is that team, which you're often finding a need at pre-seed and early stage. So I don't know if I hit your question or not.
Yeah, I think you've eliminated a gap in this state. And
That's what we hope. And again, as you see, hopefully we'll be able to get final approval to use the ABI banner. TAI is very excited about what we're doing. Gravitate is obviously the center of gravity, which is downstairs on floor 3. Don't go through it right now because it's a little messy. Unless you put some stuff in your shoes, but yeah, just drywall stuff, not anything else. Right. So, but we're trying to make sure we're positioned as a smart partner, and part of this process is there a piece here that we're overdoing? So.
Tom, do you have a question?
I was just gonna throw out, I think one of the whole things with the merge is gonna be how we build these alliances, and people can see where, if people are aligning with you, then you understand that you are in alignment. And that's kind of how we're trying to position part of the program, is so people can see it by who we're associating with. Not just that we're, this is a standalone thing, just wondering where you fit. And that's one thing Chris is working on pretty hard. And you just have to develop those marketing pieces so people can understand it.
If someone else is doing this better, our money's better spent in promoting them. So that's really our position. That's the position we take with all those three. We have not invented any of those 3 techniques for how we assess. And there are going to be classes and resources out there. Clarity Management is going to have blinded classes that will be available through Simpson as well. We're not competing with those classes. We're using those as tools to do the second step. That's our intent. It's not clear how we run the materials though, or if that's a dumb idea. We need to know now.
Let's shift gears just a little bit. I want to hear from those of you that are employers or have, executive track people who are working with you. Is this something that you would suggest to your employees or to your colleagues to go through? I'm seeing some heads nod. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
I think one of the biggest challenges we find in working with corporations is they have a culture that's already in place, and so sending somebody through this program, although it will be very beneficial for that person, arming them with the tools of how they bring that back to the corporation and change the culture so that it can be a culture of innovation, one that embraces innovation and maybe a bottom-up mentality instead of a top-down. How do you plan to arm people that are going through this program with the tools to be able to take what they've learned and then go back and actually make an impact?
Well, I think that that's something that that's one of the things that we wanted to try to get from this group was how, if you send someone through this program and you invest in that person to do this learning, then how can we work with you to support that person as they go back into your company and try to do that change from the bottom up. And I don't know that we have that exactly planned out, but there's some ideas that we have that we could do.
I think part of that answer, I think, gets to the, sorry.
Sorry.
Part of the Rush has got another pillar on this. Part of that answer is the unanswerable question, right? If we knew a complete solution for that, besides we have to get in and work together and figure out what works. What we're providing, we hope, is a safe test environment where people can take risks. It will affect an actual business. You will actually see an impact. But until we actually give people the opportunity to essentially, play in the actual playing field of no rules, of question everything, we aren't sure how you do that. And I think this is going to be an organic experience. We've run this at the undergraduate level with varying success. Some teams do well and some are horrific. Some are just never going to get it. But that's what we're looking to do. A lot of people who enter this, this is not a rubber stamp for saying you've done it. This is a weeder to figure out who can. Most people cannot do this. We want to provide people the opportunity where they can go give it a go. Maybe the first trip is horrific. Maybe their second trip is better. And maybe they've actually been able to hone and demonstrate the ability to be a change agent without having to mortgage a house and go off and run a startup that may not make it. Let's figure out how we can actually bring some real change. But how will that happen? We believe it will happen by providing a landscape where anything is possible to do within the realm of what the intended outcome is. And we will be monitoring to find who are the best facilitators to help over the hurdle we're on. And hopefully we have basically $100 an hour rate for the type of facilitators we're going to be bringing in throughout the course of the program. So if there's an issue we run into, that's going to be an issue they're going to take back with them. So we need to bring in the right facilitator to fix it while they're in shop.
I think part of that though is the education of the employer or the corporation that's
Exactly.
gonna send them in, because I can see there being a huge concern of, I'm gonna send this person into an environment of no rules, of anything kind of goes, this, you know, this exciting, and then trying to bring that back into an organization that's maybe been steeped in tradition for the last 100 years of doing things the way they're doing. So I think part of it is just those very tangible takeaways, things that can be implemented by the students after they graduate. And some of those are going to be baby step things.
Well, and I think one idea that we did have was that once they've gone through the program, they would be able to come to that employer who helped either match or pay for that person to go through and give a presentation to either their whole HR department or to their executive team or to their board of directors, so that you can see what that person did and then hopefully be able to say, here are some ideas of how you could use this information in your own company. And I do think that one of the things that you'll see on the marketing sheet that I think that we probably as a group of professionals need to really, really push is what Debbie Durham is saying, which is that, you know, innovation is what is going to drive our global economy, and that so many of our traditional companies are not thinking about how to be innovative because they have all their processes and procedures in place. And so it's a very unique, big, huge company that can be nimble enough to be innovative, and this is another step for them to do that. If they send someone through, hopefully they'll be able to bring that back.
I apologize for taking a second go ahead before I was able to hear you on this one. Sorry about that. So what you're saying, maybe I'm hearing you wrong, but so essentially at the end of this last day was intended to be essentially our pitch day, our investor day, our point where the startup is the focus. Are you saying something similar to where what we're saying here on the end of the day is also what would be the take backs? We'd end the day with here's a small thing that I could, so the professionals now promoting or pitching on, here's what we could probably take in, here's the 3 things I could actually do within my company to change. Is that?
Yeah, we all, I think we know, anybody that's been in a large organization knows that the change agent is usually the person that's a target from the people from the top. They see that person either as disruptive or you know, a detriment to the culture or things like that. And certainly what you're trying to do is change that mentality, and you're going to be able to do that, I think, with your students very easily. But then when they get back to the workplace, the last thing you want to see is these students all of a sudden getting you know, beat down by leadership, going, you know, hey, you just went through this class, that's great, but you can't come in here like a cowboy and try to change everything because you haven't educated the employer enough. So making sure that those students have the right tools, that when they go back, they're saying the right things in the right way without trying to say, look, we know you've been in business for 100 years, but I just took a 10-week course and I'm going to tell you how you're wrong. It's, you know, it's properly educating them on the steps.
So what I'm hearing you say is that an element of this program needs to include support for the students somehow, whatever makes sense for that student, to like a presentation or some sort of touch point 3 months later. How you doing? Do you need support from the Emerge program to maybe get over those hurdles, those internal hurdles?
That would be a great step, yeah.
Okay.
That would be my belief.
One follow-up here, I'm sorry. So what if, also in the syllabus, if you go online, we have our draft syllabus up, which would be what the intent of most of the sessions is within this 9-week format, which can change recently. What we have, I think, about at this week, so we go on our opening night, we then go on our first burst of actually figuring out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and what we're actually going for. And then on the second day here of our second burst, we then would have an advisor pitch where a lot of mentors would come in based on what we're looking to do and be able to give guidance, that team overarching. If we brought in, you know, maybe their direct managers or took a target bringing in, hey, here's your manager support or something, bring them in as well so they can see this process a bit, so maybe get some touch points with their employer as well.
I think that'd be great. I think, I know many of us have probably had the experience where we dread the CEO going away to a conference because we know when he comes back, he's gonna, you know, be all ready to change the world, and then 3 weeks later, everything kind of goes back to where it was, and that's you know, things like what you're talking about are very exciting. But there has to be buy-in on the corporation side. So yeah, the more that you're able to help those students be able to implement those changes and show that it, you know, will have business benefit